What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today I'm talking about A Different Man. So if you could click that like and subscribe button, because I don't want you to go to a different channel. I want you to stay with this one. Anyway, um, this movie stars Sebastian Stan as a man with a specific medical condition that causes him to have uh, facial tumors. I don't know. Given the context of the movie, I've now seen this movie twice. I was given this movie as a screener, and I hadn't gotten around to releasing my review of it, partially because I knew when this was released, and I was like, this is going to be really close to max. And I can watch this again with audio description because I was really intrigued to see how they would tackle what Sebastian Stan looks like, and also later on what his rival in this movie looks like. But I was a little let down by it. I felt like that didn't quite work for me. But it is sort of about this guy who has this condition, and he feels, like it's affecting the way that he's seen in the world, or how as he sees himself, and you know opportunities with women, whatever, his job, the way people approach him. And so when he's offered the opportunity to go through a medical procedure, he takes it. He's also just started like a friendship with his neighbor, this female neighbor of his. And then he comes out looking radically different. Basically, he comes out looking like Sebastian Stan. But around that same time, he also decides, well, I'm a new person, so I'm going to be called a new person. I don't want to be who I was. I'm going to come up with a new name. And nobody recognizes him, including his friend that he had feelings for that was across the hall, this beautiful woman. And she takes it really hard because he tells her that, well, he's a friend, and a guy died, like, and she's like, oh my God, what? So she writes this whole play about him, which then Guy auditions to be Edward, was his original name. He's now Guy. So he's sort of very meta auditioning to play himself, but he's auditioning to play himself with the deformity aspect of it that he works so hard to get rid of. Now, through the procedure, they did a mask for him of like his old face. So he has this mask that he uniquely has because of the procedure he went through. So he wears this old mask through the thing, so he can look like a version of himself. And then, lo and behold, in walks Adam Pearson, who's an actor who actually does have the medical condition in real life that Sebastian Stan has. Fake in this thing. So Adam Pearson is incredibly like everything that Sebastian Stan's Edward was not. He's confident, he's bold, he's funny, he's comfortable in who he is as a person, and that attracts people to him. And it's amazing to see that sort of other side of things. And so things sort of spiral from there. I don't want to spoil the whole movie for you, but that's kind of what the movie's about. So that's why the attention has been drawn to Sebastian Stan and Adam Pearson. Of Sebastian Stan's performances, he's better in The Apprentice, but they keep giving him awards for this, honestly, because I think they don't want to vote for The Apprentice because they don't want to be seen voting for The Apprentice. But really, he's better in The Apprentice. But I did like what he did here. This is definitely the year of Sebastian Stan and us realizing that he's a really good actor. So he was really challenged with some strong performances this year. But the film does talk a little bit about, disability and like, what would you do? And, he sort of becomes um, a bad version of himself, of Edward, because he now starts living a different life. He's like a model because he's really attractive, and without, after the procedure's done on him. I was thinking about that as somebody who was not originally blind and is now blind, and I'm like, well, if I then could see again, you know, would I then be a bad advocate for, would I forget where I came from? Would I forget the years that I spent blind? And um, it's very interesting because it's a movie that feels like it's almost shaming Stan for having ever had this original sort of perspective on life. And because you're shown Adam Pearson, who, even though we don't meet him until later in the film, I'm assuming he's always been that way. His character has always been that way. And obviously, Adam Pearson, as an actor, going out there and taking roles and stuff with the same medical thing that Sebastian Stan's character has at the beginning, he's killing the game, basically. Adam Pearson's just doing the best thing he can do. In a weird way, it's like saying that people aren't allowed to have certain feelings about the way that they feel about their disabilities, which is the one thing I don't like about the movie, is that it feels like it's making a commentary on that. It feels like by showing the world that Adam Pearson is out there killing it in the world and doing the best job, that somebody can't be the other, that somebody can't be depressed, that somebody can't have a completely different set of experiences that allow them to be where they are. Because we don't know what somebody else has been through, and we don't know. We're not shown how Edward got to be where he is. Was he made fun of as a kid? Maybe we don't know that Adam Pearson's, I forget the name of his character. We don't know that he wasn't homeschooled and then therefore wasn't taunted as a kid, whereas Sebastian Stan was. So there's a whole like subset of things, because obviously I'm pretty certain this condition is something that they have don't acquire later on in life. So that's the one thing that made me uncomfortable. I mean, now I've seen this film twice, and I've seen how the way the audio description approaches it. Um, there's a time where it calls Sebastian Stan disfigured, and like I need more description than that. I just, that's maybe too much, maybe too harsh. To say just disfigured, and just describe his condition. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I felt like maybe it's hard to cut to like a detailed description of what he looks like, but um, I don't. I wasn't a huge fan of that, and then I wasn't a fan of just the one side versus the other. Like, well, he's doing great. He's able to do it, so why aren't you? Well, I mean, they're blind athletes. I'm not. Does that mean I've somehow failed at blindness? Like, there are deaf athletes too. There are Paralympics. I mean, there's all of these other things. Doesn't mean that everybody has to be. So it kind of feels like that it has that tinge to it, that sort of like, um, because Adam Pearson's character sort of makes commentaries on like, oh, you're making him the victim. You're making Edward the victim here. And it's like, well, and she's just representing what Edward was. And we did get to kind of see Edward originally. And while she's filtering his thoughts on into the script, those were a lot of his thoughts. We didn't get to spend a ton of time with Edward. Like I'm saying, we didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with Stan before the transition, or learn anything about years before. There aren't like flashback sequences to traumatic experiences he may have had in the past. So it's a thing that just sort of like made me a little bit uncomfortable. I guess as somebody in the disability community, just with that idea of you're doing it wrong. I don't think there's one right or wrong way to do it. And I, you know, I just anyway. Um, I think there are better ways, but I think this way is kind of Adam Pearson, and by hiring an actor also who actually does have the thing, and by letting him say, well, you know, this is how we should do it. This is how we. There could be something out there like Adam Pearson in the real world who's also feeling like they're not Adam Pearson. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there could be somebody with that same exact. I can't think of what his medical condition is called, but um, with the tumors, with there could be somebody that actually has that that's watching this and is seeing this as sort of like a you know, I actually identified more with Edward at the beginning than I do with you. So it's an odd it's an odd stance to make. And this is one that makes me a little bit, it takes me a little bit out of it. I think this is the difference between, this is why having voices who are disabled out there, disabled film critics, are important, because we get to talk about these things and how films make us feel. Like Blink did not work for me as a movie. So A Different Man, I've now seen it twice. Now that I've seen it with audio description, I see how they approach things. I don't know. It just, it didn't, it actually, it went down for me, to be honest. I think the performances are fine. I like it. I think there's stuff here. You know what I'm saying? I think there's definitely meat, here. I'm just not 100% sure it was delivered in the way, in the best way possible. It's hard for me to say though, because not every disability is the same. But what I see is the possibility that even if I cut out all of the other, and I don't even know that Adam Pearson would identify as disabled, but I'm identifying him as disabled because somebody else with his condition might identify themselves as disabled. So to have that sort of referendum on Edward's original view on life is also kind of like telling those people that they're doing it wrong. And that's the thing that I don't like. Because if I knew somebody who was blind and depressed and, you know, was sad and couldn't leave their house or something like that, and didn't have a job. I do have a job. I'm not describing myself. Like, I do leave the house. I know other people. This is, I was not triggered, but I was thinking about other people that are. Like, I've met people online. I've talked to people. Being rural and being blind is a very different experience than being city and being blind. Your opportunity to have resources, it's way less. Like, I talked to a girl online who's blind and rural and hasn't even had cane training. Like, she can't leave her place because she can't walk, because she can't go anywhere. So she's lucky enough to have like things brought to her, but there's no, like, nobody seems to be able to get her cane training. So she has no mobility training to leave. I guess she could try to figure it out herself. She could order a cane and just kind of, I don't know, rudimentary teach herself, but it still wouldn't be the same thing. So I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, you're doing it wrong. You know, get out there, leave the house, and go be about your day. So she spends most of her life just inside, you know, on the computer, you know, watching movies or whatever, and just not really leaving her place and just waiting for something to come by and get delivered to her. And she dreams of moving to a city where she has access to, but she's on, you know, disability, which doesn't pay much. So it's hard for her to ever get to a point where she would ever accumulate enough money to be able to move to a city where she would be offered more services and the option to have stuff like cane training. So anyway, it's very different. So to lay down those sort of lines and to be like, you're doing it wrong, that's kind of what that's what I picked up. I've seen this twice now, and it's bothered me both times. It bothered me a little bit less the first time, when I didn't have audio description, then when I had the audio description to support a lot of the themes that are rolling through this movie, I liked it a lot less. I still think I would still give this like a positive, but I'd like, yeah. And nothing against Adam Pearson. Like, fuck yeah, dude. Go, you do you. I'm not gonna shame him for being amazing. Like, congrats on being in the movie. But it's just the sort of theme of, what about the other side of you? You know? What about the person who isn't Adam Pearson that's sitting at home right now, who has had nothing but shit thrown at them their whole life, and now feels like shit because they watch a different man and they feel like, well, I could be Adam Pearson, but I'm not. And obviously, because I'm not, I've somehow had my life ruined, or I've done the wrong thing, or whatever. So I'm gonna give A Different Man a C plus. I wish the messaging was just a little bit different. Um, Sorry. But thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.